Hi, Chris, as well. Lovely, thanks, Ian. I've got your topic.
Good. Okay, so well, hopefully I'm good to go now. So, in which case, without further ado, get started. I can see we've still got people logging in. So, the theme of today's conference is basically how to bring yourselves forward and get your time back. I'm just going to move this banner now. And what I plan to, a little bit of an introduction in terms of what we're going to be covering. Today is going to be about sharing market insights and how this will impact your business. We will touch on the dreaded C word, simply because obviously it's very relevant today. And also we'll talk about the importance of building your tribes and supporters to help you to achieve business growth and be part with how you can be active in the community. Then building up from there, we'll talk about a balanced portfolio of products, how to get your marketing mix right, and the importance of the social selling blueprint. We'll also discuss tomorrow about Facebook and Instagram and Google, and how LinkedIn should tie with your strategies. And we'll be discussing about how to build a really strong lead flow of opportunities into your business. And then on Wednesday, we're going into much more in the way of LinkedIn advanced techniques, how to give you the tools to bring yourselves forward and get your time back, and also be discussing a bit of an action plan. And one of the things I'd actively encourage you to do, as well as be very proactive as far as the next 3 days are concerned. So, for example, on Thursday as well, we've got a special guest joining us by the name of Barnaby Winter. He's going to be talking about turning high-quality leads into high-quality business. Now, you might think there's a lot of similarity over the content. There isn't, because as you'll discover, we talk about the 3 cogs, which is lead generation, prospect nurturing, sales optimization. We mainly will talk about the first 2 cogs and lead a little bit into the third one. Barnaby will really be covering the third point onwards. So that's the point when you get someone who's actually interested in having a conversation with you or having a sales-based conversation, how you take that person and nurture them further so they actually are asking for more detailed information, and how you can convert what is a very brief discovery call into something which is much more strategic, which becomes a meeting, or it may become some form of proposal, which then leads into a sale. So Barney's piece will be highly insightful and a lot of fun on that as well. And for those who are interested, we will also be having some discovery sessions too. So just having a quick look at some of the comments coming through. I guess I can see a lot more people have joined us now, so let's pick a few names out. Graham, thank you very much for your good wishes. Dave, hello, welcome. Bill, nice to see you online today. And Vernon's introduced himself there. Alex, well done. You obviously finished your call in time. Renato's one of our very loyal supporters here, as long as a number of you else on this call today. And I've got Gira Preach as well. Welcome. And who else we got here today? We got Dave. We talked about that. And Nikki. I'm glad we've been able to join us again. We've got someone called Jay, whoever Jay is, and HRP a question. So whoever is HRPS question, if you could just put your first name in there each time, it'd be really nice, because it's nice to address you all individually. And Karen, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us today as well. And we've got Garish. Well done, Garish, as well. I know you would booked him at the last minute. So moving a little bit on from there, in terms of who's this for, this is very much for people who are CEOs and leaders who want business growth, who want to take action. Clearly, if you're open-minded, you're going to get much more answers today, and we'll be showing how you can be a part of an active community, focus on business growth. Clearly, if you yourself value your time, we'll show you how to bring sales and get your time back. And also, we obviously want people who are aspirational. It doesn't matter whether you're a startup or a scale-up, or in Michael Gerber terms, he talks about a company of 1 or a company of 100. It's actually much more about the mindset of the people who are joining us today. Who it's not for those people who don't really value their time, who don't believe what Albert Einstein has to say here, which I'm sure we're all guilty of, and I'm certainly I am. And it's very easy to fall into the trap of getting into repeating the same common habits of behaviour, and then being surprised why nothing actually really changes. And for those who take part over these 3 days, one lucky person will win the BizGrowth Premier membership, which includes a laptop and software as well as our BizGrowth Premier service. And that winner will be announced on Wednesday, unless there's a draw, in which case it will be roll over into Thursday, because we'll probably need someone impartial to also have a look at the results to make sure that it's being awarded fairly. Over these next few days, we'll also be showing you particularly on how with LinkedIn, using the social selling blueprint, you can create a repeatable, predictable system which will give you sales month in, month out, following a 5-message process. The detail of that is more tomorrow and on Wednesday, but we will go into this a little bit today. And to improve your chance of winning the competition, in fact, I will say that Nikki, who's joined us today, was the runner-up last time round. Nikki is very competitive, by the way. She's very friendly and very cuddly, as it were, but very competitive. Okay, so what I would say, a few tips to you here: just make lots of notes. If you miss a day, which obviously we hope you won't, make sure you catch up on the recording or recordings before Wednesday. Okay, because the competition will be on Wednesday, and you're going to stand a much better chance if you make lots of notes through these 3 days. And it will be based on people who fully completed the online questionnaire on Wednesday, and all being well, the winner will be declared on the end, unless there's a tiebreaker, which Thursday. There'll be some instant prizes too. Barnaby Winter, who's joined us on Thursday, we've got a few books of his, which we're going to be giving away. And we'll be absolutely delighted to share that with you. So if you haven't already done so, please do introduce yourself in the chat. Tell us what you're really passionate about. Also, tell us, indicate what you really like out of these 3 days. I'd be really keen to know. And ask bold questions. Don't be backwards in coming forwards. One thing I would ask though is, please can you avoid putting web links in? It doesn't. We as a policy, we won't display those messages in there if they've got web links in there, unless we ask you to do so. You're sharing genuine value. Okay. Now the other thing is, we've already got several volunteers who've very kindly put themselves forward. But if you've got a really good question you would like to ask, put detail what that question actually is, and potentially we may ask you who'd like to volunteer to actually take part for 5 or 6 minutes, either day, tomorrow or Wednesday. Okay, and if you're asking a question, perhaps just add in there that you'd be very happy to be featured on the show. We may well bring you in. I know Alex Reardon has very kindly put himself forward, so he's going to be a guest today, and I think Nikki's joining us tomorrow, and also Ian as well. So several of you have already put your next selves forward, so please do feel free to do that. And right, just lost where I am in the slide deck. It's really your chance to be involved with all of this. A quick intro from me and from Muriel. I won't go to this, spend too much time on this, but I'm a stereotypical entrepreneur. The idea of Business Growth Bureau came about through conversations I had with CEO of a charity. We gave them a lot of informal advice about 6 or 7 years ago, and he came back to me and said, "Rupert, what you've said has been so helpful. What have you thought about setting up a service helping other businesses to get clients?" That led to a big catalyst of change. They became clients of ours for a couple of years. We really loved working with that organization, and they're continuing to go from strength to strength today. Previously, I grew a company from 1 to 65 people over 4 years. I'd like to think I got everything right. I didn't. I made a few mistakes along the way. We didn't manage to get 160,000 members, though, over 4 years. At its peak, we were handling 30,000 calls per month, and we built a tribe up of over 3,000 loyal supporters. Plus, the organization itself managed to was featured on television, national TV several times, including with The One Show and Kay Burley on Sky News. And Kay Burley is still very active at Sky News, as people already know. What I want to do here is to be here for you as an organization. Now, Muriel, do you want to introduce yourself, Muriel, for a moment? You,
I will. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all. Yes, I work with Rupert, obviously supporting him in anything he needs me to do, but mainly I work with our clients. I'm very passionate about working with people, spending time with people. I enjoy people. And my passion is really to help them succeed in whatever they want to achieve. And I get great pleasure from that. And of course, all the mundane roles that Rupert gives me as well, from admin to whatever. But yes, and of course, I worked with him in the past companies and supported him there, which I really enjoyed as well.
yeah, I think Muriel's rather playing herself down there a little bit, actually, because Muriel was effectively, and he's still effectively, second in command, as it were. With the previous organisation, Muriel effectively managed a team of about 45 people. And you can imagine with handling 30,000 calls per month, average call time 14 minutes, that was no small feat. We had to invest heavily in the telephony side, had to move offices 3 times to accommodate the growth and so on. So Muriel was there, making sure everything happened. And one of her great assets is she cares passionately about clients as well. So everyone needs a Muriel, as I keep on telling her. Until one day she's going to ask for lots more money, and I might decide more.
Tell me to the highest bidder.
Exactly. Okay. So one of the things I also love doing is focusing on building circular relationships where everyone wins. Now, a lot of people, especially large corporate entities, do a lot of cheap talk about a win-win. Now, we all know if it's a large company versus a small one, almost invariably that actually means win-lose, okay? And what I'm talking about here is looking at all the individual stakeholders who you actually work with. They don't have to be customers, remember, they could be suppliers, for example, but look at your suppliers, the investors in your business, the prospects, the clients, the partners, and the associates, and also look at your management team and your staff as well, and associates, all those people around you. Look at how you can make them feel good about the relationship. And what you'll find is that commitment and loyalty will come back in spades. And we're very lucky in a whole range of different respects. And that's borne out here. We've got an advisory team, and Chris Cooper co-hosts the Look Forward Thursdays live stream with me. Karen, who's also on this call today, welcome Karen again. She's a real fun lover, as I'm sure she would gladly tell you, but also years of experience with working with Vistage and also with medium-sized and some corporate entities as well, both in the UK and in Australia. Alex Reardon, former senior director at IBM, he corrected me the other day. I need to correct this slide. It wasn't 5,000 people responsible for it, it's 4,500 people, but what's 500 people amongst friends, as it were? Either way, he was responsible for a large part of the global activity within IBM, and I know he's going to contribute a little bit to the show today, so we're welcoming that as well. And then we've got Alex Smith, who's very much a millennial, very independent, as you would expect. But what he does, he tends to bring in lots of fresh ideas, which we tap into. So this is a really good example. Now, interesting enough, apart from one person, all 3 people, Chris, Karen, and Alex Reardon, I met through LinkedIn. So it goes to show you, isn't always about necessarily sales on LinkedIn. It's about building really valuable partnerships and relationships. I think Alex Smith I met through a networking event in Essex, if I remember correctly. But you can really build some good business and good partnerships on LinkedIn if you do things the right way. Crucially, it's also about understanding market insights as well. So we're going to be sharing that with you today. And now some of you been on the live streams before will be familiar with some of this information, but it's not a bad idea for it to be reinforced. So let's look at a bit of a breakdown of the companies in the UK. Now, this is excluding sole traders. Okay, so if you include sole traders, you almost need to double these numbers here, okay, which will completely skew the results even more in favor of the micro business. So micro business, well, probably technically is below 10 employees, but there's 74% of business in the UK which employ just one person. It's 3.2 million business. That's limited companies, okay? There's another 1.2 million business in the UK which employ between 2 and 10 people, okay? which is 21%. And there's about 4% of businesses in the UK which employ between 11 and 50 people, which is 220,000 businesses. And there's 1%, which is the rest. Now, the 1% includes businesses which employ, that's up to 250. But there's something like 0.05% businesses are the corporates. Now, admittedly, the corporates will perhaps employ half the workforce, but you can see here it is the small to medium-sized businesses which are truly the engine of the economy. Now, why do I focus on this? Well, a really important thing to understand is actually this helps you to really understand who is your ideal client. So, for example, your perception might be that I'm a bit of a generalist, so therefore a very broad appeal. So it's pretty well all of that. Well, I can guarantee you it almost certainly isn't. So let's take a real case in point. Let's say you were an organisation offering services and at the, typically above £1,000 up to £10,000 or £15,000, something in that range or equivalent in dollars. Okay, the chances are, now obviously I need to drill down a lot more detail, but it may be your target market is perhaps 10 or 20% of the 3.2 million, not the 3.2 million overall, because the vast majority of businesses who in that range earn way below the VAT threshold. Okay, so in other words, they're probably not earning any more than they would do in a good day job, as it were. Okay, then you've got the 1.2 million business. Now, it may well be that's where a lot of the sweet spot is for many businesses. As it were, especially in the business sector, and it might be there's another sweet spot for about a third of the 220,000. Okay, obviously being a bit general here, everyone's going to be different, but the reason I mentioned that to you is it's really important at this stage. You need to start thinking about how you can segment and narrow people down in your chosen target market. Now, obviously, I'm going at quite a pace here, Muriel. Have we got a few questions that have come up, or anyone you particularly would like to highlight at this particular point in time? Miro, you need to switch your microphone on.
Yeah, sorry, there was one from Kim.
Right.
There you go.
Okay, I'm new to networking. I want to know how to future-proof my business in the light of current economic uncertainty for my clients. Looking forward to engaging in this session. Kim, that's a lovely question. In fact, that ties in quite well with something we're going to be covering a bit later on about building tribes. And actually, if you follow us through over the next few days, especially around LinkedIn, you'll get some really good prompts on that as well. Okay, now I have so much ways to generate leads to my podcasting business. Creating content or posts can be a really good strategy on the social media platforms. So let's look at Facebook to start with. Now, just as a case in point, what you can have is that on Facebook these days, you typically have to pay to play, as it were. Whereas perhaps 2 or 3 years ago, if you wrote articles and posts on Facebook, you get a reasonable amount of traction. Nowadays, they don't need to do that anymore. So in order to get traction, that's not so easy on Facebook anymore. Clearly, on Instagram, if you've got a very consumer-focused product, that can work very well still now. On LinkedIn, it's really interesting because posts and articles could be a really good thing to do in terms of generating leads for your podcasting business. At the moment, it still works pretty well. Having said that, what we recommend with any form of marketing, it's worth having what we class as a push-pull strategy. So in reality, posting content and articles, and podcasts for that matter, is very much almost like a pull strategy because people are, in effect, drawn to you. It elevates your brand, but in real terms, you need to be able to put rocket fuel underneath it as well. So you can, 2 ways of doing that. One way is you can actually pay for LinkedIn to promote what you're doing. Or the other way is strategies that we're going to be talking about, particularly tomorrow and Wednesday, about how to drive people through to your posts, blogs or articles. But actually, more important than that, how to actually drive people into your sales process as you start build up a really strong lead flow conversation. So, Andrew, I'm hoping that's helped a little bit there. Mira, if we could move on a little bit from there, please. And what we'll do is we'll have a little breakout session in a little while again.
Okay.
So to remove comment, if that's all right. Now moving on from there. So what you've also got is something called the rule of 3/3. Now this is particularly relevant if you're selling time for money. Okay, now obviously a lot of people are doing that, so you could include solicitors and accountants in that lot as well. But let's say it's coaches, trainers, consultants, mentors, and so on. Okay, you've got something called the rule of 3/3. Now, basically what that is that let's say you've got 260 working days in a year. It may well be at the time you take off holidays and sick pay and time with family and things like that as well, that comes down to 220 working days, okay? Now, let's say your desired level of income, just keep it around numbers, £100,000 or $100,000 every year. What that would mean is that a lot of people make a mistake of dividing by the 100,000 by the 220, and that would give them their minimum daily rate that they need to be able to proportionally charge their time at. That's actually the wrong answer. What you need to do is actually divide that by 3, and the reason being is about a third of your time will typically be billable work. Okay, about another third of your time will be perhaps finding prospects and clients, and the other third of the time will be like self-development and avoid periods. Okay, and that's obviously there are ways you can increase those percentages where you get billable work, and one way is strategies we're going to be showing you tomorrow and Wednesday will do that. That will change those ratios completely, so you're actually probably able to get up to about 2/3, or certainly well over half. Okay, by putting some strategies we're going to recommend to you. Okay, but if you want to do that, what you need to do is take that 220 days, divide it by 3. That gives you 70 working days. Okay, and let's say it's 100,000 a year. You need to take your 100,000 a year, divide by 70. That would give you your minimum daily rate that you need to equate your time at. Okay, but what you also need to do is to make sure you're delivering far more value than your billable rate. So with that in mind, just if you don't do that, what will happen is you'll be really struggling to put the oxygen mask on yourself. So it's just well worth looking at that. The other thing is, of course, now this is a bit obvious, yet it's obvious, but many people just don't factor this in. It's important not to take your foot off the pedal. So there's different scenarios. You've got seasonality, like under normal circumstances, perhaps the holiday periods like August, September, and Christmas time. You've also got, where it can be quiet, or it can also be very busy, depending on what your business is. It can also be that you're a business which gets oversubscribed and therefore takes your foot off the pedal, and then what happens? You end up in this trough, okay? And then it takes you go into the reverse mode, and then you start to find you're building things up again, go into delivery mode, and guess what? Your income peaks, and you go back into a trough again. But there's also there's many other ways that this can be an issue as well. So, for example, we got things which were totally unexpected. For example, last year before, you had Brexit. Now, obviously, to a certain extent, that's still ongoing, obviously. But that, in a sense, that was predictable to a degree. We didn't know which way it's going to go. It's still not clear now. But at least there was some degree of predictability with that. Obviously, what's happened in the last since January, February this year is completely unpredictable. Okay, I don't think anyone really expected this car crash to come down the road, which we're experiencing at the moment. But what it is about is actually looking at your business and looking at what's working really well, but also looking at the breakability factor in your business too. We'll be touching on that a bit more tomorrow as well. So what we will be discussing as well is how you can create a very strong, first of all, straighten out those peaks and troughs, so it's no longer peaks and troughs the way you would traditionally expect, but how you can put people onto a growth path with all this good stuff. So, and then moving on a little bit from there, if we were then to look at this other part, and we'll be going into a lot more detail about this tomorrow and Wednesday, it's also important to look at the social selling blueprint. So it's lead generation, prospect nurturing, sales optimization. So what we mean by that, it's really important that you know how to find your ideal target clients. We'll show you how to do that, how you can connect and have meaningful conversations with people, through a proper minimum of 5-message process, so you get people really engaged. And the third cog is really where you get people warmed up, where they're actually asking to have those conversations. Okay, now if you get this right, you build in predictability. Okay, but of course, if one of those 3 cogs stops turning, okay, then everything stops happening as well. And this is why what we class the social selling blueprint is so important. Now, I was going to come on to some other parts as well. So, Muriel, are there some other parts that we want to pick out here or flag up?
Yeah, there are. Hillary, there you go. There's Hillary's.
Right, to website, Instagram to Facebook. Right, that's an interesting one. Hillary, I think to be able to answer that a little bit better, I need to understand a little bit more about the challenges you're facing around that at this particular point in time. Are you finding that people, first of all, you're attracting the wrong type of client, okay? And also, quite often, people actually are not opting into something. So, in other words, that if they're staying within that platform itself, you don't necessarily know, you still don't know who they are. Can you give us a bit more information, Hillary? And what we'll do is have a go at answering that. But also, if you're happy potentially to come forward and be featured as part of the live stream, then let me know. We'll see whether we can get onto this program today. And so Naz, I raised prime investment for a small business that I'm seeking to grow. Much uncertainty in the market at the moment. Trying to broaden my reach through LinkedIn might be a route. Yeah. Again, Naz, I need to understand more. But from what you're saying, definitely. And the nice thing is you don't need to pay LinkedIn any money for pay-per-click with all of this as well. I'm going to be showing lots of techniques about that, especially tomorrow and on Wednesday. The nice thing with that as well is that once you get people into your ecosystem, okay, they're actually very much part of your ecosystem. And again, I will be building more on that tomorrow and Wednesday. So if it's right with you, I might defer some of that till tomorrow. But if you want to,
just one more, Rupert. Then this is Manjot's actually referring to LinkedIn on this.
Right. How to get more increase of number of posts viewed compared to what you get. Right. How do you get far more value from the criteria? And this is particularly with LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Okay. What I would say in LinkedIn with posts and articles, it can work very, very well, as I've sort of highlighted. Obviously, what I don't know is exactly what your articles and posts are actually about. What I would say is if you're writing things which are relevant, a lot of this is going to depend on people who are also in your network as well, Manoj. What I would suggest is that with your posts and articles, it's great for building awareness, but typically most people need a much more targeted approach. And of course, LinkedIn is starting to get oversubscribed with posts and articles. So you're going to find it more and more difficult to get attention unless you're prepared to pay to play, as it were. So I would recommend you start to look at other strategies, much more direct strategies like we're talking about here, in which case you can do the segmentation and targeting much more effectively. I'm not sure how that's helping. Okay, and right, give me a second. Is there anything else, Muriel, I'm missing particularly at this point? You're missing along the way, possibly.
You really struggling to go through and be.
I'm
I'm not quite sure what this one is. Really struggling in August.
Yeah, I think that's more feedback now. So thank you. I think it's interesting actually because we noticed there was quite a surge in June or July. August was definitely, in our experience, a bit quieter generally. And I think it may be as well combined by the fact that lockdown was starting to be eased a little bit, so more people probably did go away than would normally expect at this time of year. But what I would say is, I think with all of this, it's about building much more in the way of predictability. Let me just a second. I'm going to quick look at Hillary's comments here. I might pick up on that later, actually. Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Muriel, I've shared a link with you a bit earlier on for people there to join in on the show itself. Hillary, if you're up for it being on the show, perhaps after we've had a little bit of a conversation with Alex, in a little while. Perhaps we could bring on to the show. If you're happy with that, let's try and discuss it. So it's a lovely question.
Where did you share that link, Rupert, with me?
By email. If you looked at your email, in fact,
okay.
I've copied it in there. So if you put in the chat for Hillary, others, if you please don't use that unless you're invited to do that. That'd be appreciated. So what we'll do is we'll keep moving for the moment, and then we'll come back to that. So I'm just going to find where I'm at. Here we go. Now, this is another really interesting slide. Now, this is more relevant for larger organizations or organizations where at least you've got one or several business development managers. For a larger organization, it's also very relevant too. What tends to happen, if you look at business development managers, a lot of the time they're actually wasting their time on the wrong type of prospects. So what they're doing is the business development managers are spending time on cold prospects, trying to reach out to them, and yet there's been no level of engagement there whatsoever. Now, that means the business development manager, which of course is a very expensive resource, okay, because first of all, it can take 6 months to get a good BDM properly trained, may actually be operating well below their, what you would expect them to be able to achieve. And the trouble with that as well, it's very frustrating. Not only do you as an employer or a business owner get very frustrated because the business development manager is struggling to perform, but the other part to it as well is that they get burnt out. And guess what? After about 6 months or so, they're actually looking for another job. They may not be telling them they are, but they're almost certainly looking for another job. And that further increases your training and recruitment costs. It's much better to try and look at what strategies you can put in place to create a lead flow of opportunities coming through, where those business development managers are actually only dealing with hot prospects, okay? Because not only does a business development manager overperform their targets, but the company is happy because their turnover and sales are going up and the profitability is going up, and also that improves retention rates. Okay, so it's just worth factoring that in. So another little graphic here, is that on looking at over several thousand profiles on LinkedIn, we believe that only about 25% of profiles are properly optimized or semi-optimized, okay? And the reason is it's not necessarily your fault, it's because you're optimizing your profile the way that LinkedIn want you to optimize your profile. And if you're looking for a job, then optimize it the way that LinkedIn wants you to do it. LinkedIn also wants you to use company pages quite a bit. In reality, company pages don't perform overly well on LinkedIn. The about section in your profile and your strapline on LinkedIn does, however, work very well. So we suggest optimizing your profile in a different way, which really is designed to appeal directly to your customers. Because remember, we're all individuals on LinkedIn. And when someone reaches out to you, it's not the company reaching out to you, it's the individual on behalf of that organization. So it's really important to get that right. Now, again, I'll be discussing a lot more about that, to do with that on Tuesday and Wednesday. Okay, so hopefully that helps a little bit. So we'll drill down a bit more detail. And if you were to also look at our sources of business, which is really insightful, I think I mentioned to you that 3 out of our 4 panelists who are on our advisory team, we met through LinkedIn. It wouldn't surprise you to say that 61% of new business that we get and also our clients get tends to be through LinkedIn. As part of that, we've got a very large email list. We've got about 68,000 people on our overall list, about 28,000 which are pretty active. But that only accounts for 25%. And then we've got referrals about 9%. Instagram, Facebook, only 5%. Now, that's probably because we're mainly in the business sectors. And I think I saw a question come out much more about Facebook a bit earlier on. So that'd be interesting to explore as well. And so it's just worth understanding some of those stats. Now, there are some obvious elephants in the room. So let's just come to those now. So dealing with the elephant in the room. And so what you've got here is what I class as a decline of the dinosaurs and the ascent of those that adapt and change and innovate, okay? Now, I'm not talking about dinosaurs by age. I'm talking about it more by mindset, okay? Now, obviously, we've got very large corporate entities, and you've perhaps got an older demographic where perhaps the management team have got stuck in their ways into also bad habits, and also may pay lip service to corporate social responsibility, but actually they mean the complete opposite. Those type of people, unfortunately, unless they adapt and change, are very much of the past. We only need to look at what's happening in the workplace, say with millennials, as case in point. I think it's estimated within 5 years, millennials will be actually the majority in the workplace. Okay, so obviously, the more mature people, I include myself in that, by the way, tend to have a lot of experience to share, but it is about continually adapting and changing, and also doing the right thing by your clients. Okay, basically, what would be really nice, Alex, I don't know whether you can hear me at this point. That's Alex Reardon, by the way. If you could very kindly click the link so you come into the green room, okay? Be bringing in about 5 minutes or so, 5-10 minutes or so, if that's all right. Hillary, I'll probably give you a little prompt as well. If you could just let Muriel know that you've got the link through. Don't come in straight away, Hillary, but we'll invite you probably in after Alex. Just give me a second to get a glass of water. Sorry about this. I got over a cold last week. I just mute my microphone just for a second, bear me a moment. Sorry about that. I had a cold last week, and of course I had to do the checks to make sure it definitely wasn't COVID. They definitely wasn't. My poor wife has now picked it up, which she's not terribly happy about, but there we go. So I'm afraid there's a few things that we will put up with. So just bear me a second. Let's go on to the next slide. So with that in mind, let's look at what may make or break. The street at the top there is actually an Italian street in the middle of lockdown. The other photograph you see is, in fact, the other Alex, who was actually on a flight. I think it was about late February, early March. And if you look very carefully, there are about 10 or 12 passengers on the plane at the very back. Now, obviously, that's an example. The airline industry itself probably wasn't expecting what came down the road, okay? But obviously, that's proved to be a massive threat. Now, let's look at those cases where those organizations gain. So let's look at Amazon as a case in point. Well, we all know Amazon is making an absolute killing at the moment, literally. Also, Google. Google is, very much a company of the moment, as it were. They're very well geared up to deal with this pandemic. And let's look at Microsoft benefiting massively. Let's look at Zoom benefiting massively. Okay. Now, I'm not trying to say this to rub things in, because obviously a lot of us are finding it, very tough at the moment. What I'm just simply saying is that at times like this, we need to look at what we can do with our business to really move things onto another level. You might think, well, why have I got a picture of a garden shed? Well, guess what? A few weeks ago, we're looking at how we could further extend what we've got here. So we've got more space to work from home. My poor wife is always having to work from the dining room table, which always causes her problems. But when we were speaking, went to a local garden centre, there was some of these very large, very elaborate, glorified garden sheds or whatever. Basically, they were saying really during the whole of the lockdown period, they've been doing phenomenally well, so much so they've got a 3 to 4 month backlog with what they're doing. And obviously, there's other companies which are benefiting. So companies selling hot tubs, for example, people who do landscaping and other types of work as well. So there are sectors which are doing very well at the moment. So what I would just pose the question or thought of at the moment is, what can you do with your business to flex a little bit, to make it much more relevant to the current market? We've even had to look at what we're doing. We were running a lot of physical events as well. Fortunately, we were already online as well, so it didn't have a massive impact on us. But I do know someone else who was running quite a large events-based organization, and going to an event in January, and I think he had over 100 people in the room. By the time they got to the first week of March, which was just before lockdown happened, I think the room was about half full. And I know for him, he estimated that it was going to cause him massive collateral damage. Now, his business is flexible enough, again, to survive and thrive at the end of it. So the person who runs that business, by the way, I've got he's someone I very highly regard, and I know he will do very well, you know, in the medium long term. But nevertheless, you know, it surprised a lot of people. So I remember at times like this, and obviously we've had Chris Whitty talking about things today. We've probably got Boris Johnson talking about things tomorrow, as we would expect. What I would say is it is about looking at how you can adapt, move into new markets, refining a product proposition. But when you've done that, make sure you understand your market segmentation and try and look at those sectors which are doing well, rather staying to the ones which perhaps are very oversaturated and there's little money around at the moment. Then just be a bit smart about how you do your targeting. And we also see with a lot of one-person business, they tend to go, the founders of those businesses tend to very much go back to perceived safety or go to their cave, as it were. I don't mean that, because I tend to like to go to my man cave every now and again, do things, as it were. But what I mean by that is that it's very easy to fall into the trap of just following the rest of the crowd, when at times like this, it's about making sure that you invest in your business in the right way. So what my personal view is that times like this is a time you should be speaking to your customers and prospects and advocates. With things like product development and marketing and innovation, those are probably a lot of things which a lot of people find fun. I would say do those out of core hours. So it might be you do that very early in the morning, or when you finish the bulk of your day, early evenings, or possibly on Saturdays. Focus on looking after your customers, look at all your current prospects, look at your past customers as well. How can you engage with those, okay? You know, we all know cash flow is king. And we also know, well, I think most of us know it, but whether we adopt it is another matter. There's good money versus bad money. Now, people might perceive at times like this that they should keep all their money invested in the bank. Now, that can be a good thing to do, because it's a good thing to have cash reserves in your business. It's really important. Having said that, if you've got money to invest and you're prepared to invest in the right way, then it can really help you to move your business forward, not only now, but also as we start to come out of this terrible pandemic we're dealing with at the moment. It's about how you can position yourself by doing that. And not only that, because other people will have gone back to their cave, if I can put it that way, it will mean that you're actually steps ahead of everyone else. You're at the beginning of that curve rather than being at the back of it. So use your money sensibly and appropriately, but do invest in the right things, okay? Now, I'm just going to touch on this for a second. It's not relevant to our service at all. But over the last few months, I have been talking about things like the bounce back loans. It's not our specialist area, okay? Obviously, you should always seek proper advice. But if you're obviously a larger business, there are different forms of finance around. But for a smaller one, if you haven't taken advantage of this at the moment, do look at it, because invariably, it's a very cheap source of money. For example, in the first year, it's 0% interest. In the subsequent 5 years, I believe it's 2.5% per year. And literally, you can, if so long as your business has, can prove some element of trading, there are obviously lots of terms and conditions around it, but your application could literally be approved in 15 minutes. Okay, and I know that because we ourselves went through that process, but also a number of our clients and prospects also went through it as well. And the big thing is it's enabled them to put money to one side on one hand, so it gives them resilience to bounce back, but also it's enabling them to invest appropriately in their business. Also, no personal guarantees. Okay, another big thing. Okay, so it's not subject to the normal underwriting criteria of a bank. And also be very careful with the advice you get as well, because I do know someone, and I won't mention his name because he might be on the call today, but I do know someone who actually went to their accountant. Their accountant said on the basis of what he was told, he'd be eligible for about £3,500 worth of bounce back loans. In reality, if he'd approached it another way, he probably would have got about 13 or 14,000. Okay, because the key criteria around that is one of the key questions they want to know is, has your business been in fact impacted by COVID? If you answer yes, okay, then what you can say is, well, my turnover would have been, I'm making this up, but £250,000 over the next year, okay? That's what we were projecting, but that's affected, it's reduced my turnover by half, for example, okay? So what you can do is base it on your projected turnover if COVID hadn't come along. Okay, so don't be very careful. If you get advice, make sure people know what the hell they're talking about. Unfortunately, this person was done a very big bad disservice by their accountant in this particular case. Okay, and unfortunately, when you made an application and once you've used it, you can't. My understanding is you can't go back on it either. So it's just worth considering. So moving back more to the core content. Obviously, we're here to actually help to grow you, make sure that you've got the strength and resilience to take things forward at a personal level. We're primarily here to help you in the growth of your business. And for those people who want to scale their business, we're here for you as well. Our specialist area really is around the social selling blueprint, which is to do with ties with LinkedIn. And we can advise in general terms about Facebook and Instagram, but it's not our specialist areas. And make sure that your customers and products and markets are at the center of everything. And of course, that your teams and your associates are very much the center of what you do as well. Because at the end of the day, if you've got a team of people working with you, if you don't look after those, then, you know, real terms, you're going to perpetually struggle and may wonder where all the success has actually gone to. Questions, Muriel? Any questions which are coming out so far?
Yeah, there's one from Jonathan. If I can go back and find it, there you go.
Right. Jonathan, I don't know anything about your sector. I'm afraid with that one, I need to know a lot more about the type of customers that you're looking to target. What I will do is just answer it in general terms. Okay. Yeah.
You recall with Jonathan, it was the
right,
icon.
Okay. I do vaguely remember. I think it was a conversation I had a couple of months ago. Yeah, it was right. On the networking this week. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, thank you for that. So if it genuinely is more on the business consumer space, things like Facebook and Instagram potentially does work better, but with a big caveat around that. A lot of it will also depend on your average value of sale as well. For example, if a lot of the treatments are quite low cost, it could be very difficult to get a good return on your investment by doing pay-per-click. Okay, doesn't mean to say it won't be. And that, whereas if your average value of sale is quite high, and you can clearly define those people you want to reach out to, then the converse could be true. So some of the platforms, like I mentioned, like Facebook, Instagram, can work in those scenarios. LinkedIn, if you're appealing more to a business owner, it can work extremely well. But also bear in mind, we're all individual consumers on LinkedIn too. So, for example, you know, if we've got a client in the past we've helped where they specialise in Arabian tents, okay, and their average 4-day hire was £10,000, okay, and they specialise in things like wakes, 25th wedding anniversaries, wrap parties from films, all this type of stuff, and of course it tied in with a lot with events and hospitality. Now that was very much on the whole a consumer-based product, okay, but LinkedIn works really well for that because we're all individual consumers. But it's more about trying to be a little bit more strategic with your marketing. So Jonathan, and maybe one of these conversations we have to take offline, I'm not sure, to understand it a little bit more. But stay with us over tomorrow and Wednesday. We'll give you some more top tips, and we can obviously have a one-to-one conversation about that if that's helpful. So Damien, hello Damien, it's nice to see you on here. Account top, right. Okay, again, we're covering this a lot more on Tuesday, Wednesday. But to answer your question simply, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, forget about LinkedIn Premium. Okay, LinkedIn Premium was defeatured about 3 years ago when Microsoft came along. They took some of the key functionality out. It's still good, but it's nothing like as good as Sales Navigator. Sales Navigator is a bit more complex to use, but we can give you some good techniques on that. So Damon, hopefully that's helped a little bit. So, okay. Right. So I think what we'll do then is just bear me a second. Maybe remind me what's on the next slide. Yeah, now this leads in really nicely into the next point. Now, I've got a great guest, Alex. Can you make sure you can join us on the green room now, if you could, please? Just click the link. You've got Muriel. Has Alex got the link? Okay, I think he has, hasn't he?
You emailed it to him earlier.
Yes, yeah, I did. Alex, I'll give you another minute or so to just join us. If you just click the link that I sent you in the email, if you can't find it, let us know and we'll find another way to bring you in. Okay. Now, Alex got a lot of value to share on this particular point, and I'm very keen to discuss this with him. But I've known some of the points he's going to make is probably going to steal a lot of our thunder and some of our slides. But Alex, be a quick man, and we'll get you on air, and we'll feature you right now if you can make it. Okay. Right. So in which case, let me start to cover this, and hopefully Alex will join us in just a moment. Okay. So over those of you who joined us in, started joining some of the live streams in March, I think Graham, for example, and Renato, who are on the call today, were some of the very early viewers on part of our live streams, which started off in March this year. We started the live streams all to do with COVID, okay? And basically what Chris and I were talking about is how we could share lots of value, okay, so that so it was our way of giving back. We want to be outward facing, and we also went with it. What we had was a great guest come on called Neil Lawson, which I'll explain in just a moment. Bear me a second. Right. I tell you what, I'm wondering whether me, Alex, just bear me a moment if you can hear me. Muriel, I might have shared the wrong link earlier on. I did that with you, didn't I? Just,
right.
Alex,
I'll try and find him. I'll
no,
try and find the link.
Yeah, just bear me a second, Muriel. I might be able to help here. Maybe a second. Alex, I think it's my fault actually, because I end up by joining the wrong room. And I thought Muriel was sitting in one room, and
I'm not sure.
Alexa's woken up as well now. Right, Alex, you'll see a link coming through there. Others, if you please don't use that unless I ask you to do so. Alex, you click that link that's in the chat. We should see you in the green room in just a moment. Okay. All right. So, okay. Now, Neil Lawson is a serial adventurer. He's been up Everest 6 times. He got caught up on Everest during the Nepal earthquake. He also flew a microlight with a mini car attached from the UK to Timbuktu. And he also is best mates with Bear Grylls as well. Now, there are some other examples here. Let's just have a quick look at a couple of others as well. Let's look at Marcus Rashford. Now, obviously, when all this business was going on a little while ago, he decided to do something around this whole subject of free school meals. He was campaigning for that, okay? And of course, he got Sir Captain Tom as well, bless his cotton socks. It's up to 40 million now, I believe, if you include gift aid for the NHS. But he's built a tribe of 1.5 million people. And then a different type of person altogether is Patrick Hutchinson. Obviously, you may remember the Black Lives Matter march. Well, he was very much here to, he was there, saw someone else in difficulty and helped this person here. And one of the things he said on the interview was, I believe we're here all as one people, all one race. And I thought it was a really capturing moment. Now, all these people in their own right are almost tribe leaders. So Marcus Rashford, his own way, obviously it's a Captain Tom, who people would die for a tribe of 1.5 million people. Patrick Hutchinson, obviously very much man of the moment, as it were. And you've got some other examples of that as well. So let's move on from there. So we also know someone else who's, I dread to compare the likes of people just covered to our dear leader from the United States. But is this person a good tribe leader? And don't worry, I'm not about to get into the political arena with this one. I think we've all got our own opinions of that, but whatever you believe, he does know how to play the media and mobilize a crowd. And that's not just the media, but also social media as well. Many previous president-elects have had to spend, hundreds of millions, possibly even billions of pounds to get a presence. He's been able to get a lot of it for free by being absolutely outrageous with a lot of what he does, a lot of his comments. So it is your chance to be involved, and I'm going to invite my good friend Alex to join in now. So Alex, welcome. Nice to...
Hello, Rupert.
Yeah, I do apologise. I gave you the wrong link. So I gave you the one for Wednesday, not for today.
I'm used to sitting in rooms on my own, unwanted. It's all right.
Well, in that case, I apologise to Hilary because I copied that link that you sent me, Rupert. So, Hilary, if you can use the one that you can see in the chat window, please.
Yeah, okay, that's lovely. Alex, we had a great conversation last week, and again, we met through LinkedIn again, didn't we? So
we did, yeah.
That's everything sort of started from there. And I know you've got a few passions of your own, haven't you? Which one of your main passions is to do with cars, is that right? Do you want to tell us a little bit about your passion for that?
You can see slightly behind little things from cars, but no, it was. I guess at heart, I'm a frustrated engineer. When I was about 4 years old, I took my grandfather's cuckoo clock apart, and apparently couldn't put it back together. So I spent the intervening 53 years figuring out how to fix things and put them back. But the attraction of cars for me, it's not just the beauty and the driving, but it's the mechanical side and it's the problem solving. And
right.
That's very much the same with business and what I've done in my business career. It's been about taking a problem, looking for what the root of the problem is and trying to fix it. I mean, if we went into another room in the house at the moment, you will find my wife's sewing machine in bits all over the table. It's not stitching correctly. The wife's sewing machine. Now, I'm not a sewing machine expert, but it's not stitching correctly. So the sewing machine now has been taken apart. It's linked up to an oscilloscope. It's got bits all over the thing. It's about solving a problem, right? And I just love doing that.
Yeah, I know. I love that. No, thank you very much for that. Now, obviously, that's a little bit about the personal Alex, although I got to know Alex a little while. I know he's a much deeper person than many of us would believe. But he also is a really good example of how he was able to lead from the front and also create a tribe. I think in your time, was it IBM? You managed a team of about 4,500 people overall. Is that sort of globally? Is that correct?
Quite a few thousand people around Europe. Yeah.
Yeah.
And through a difficult time for the company, if you go back to the early 2000s, IBM was coming out of its near-death experience, as it was described. And the business I ran, which was technical support, was under a lot of pressure to deliver very high levels of profitability. And I ran a number of countries, one of which was the UK. And in the UK, we were dramatically worse than any other country in Europe. Now, what's interesting is when you start to bring a team together to address a problem, many of whom have been doing the same job for many, many years and believe the way they do it is the right way, and you're having to make that change, you've got to take them with you. You've got to be both tough in what you're doing, because you can't be nicey all the time. You've got to be tough but fair, but you've also got to be very clear on why you're doing it, right?
Right.
And part of building the tribe is not just to be able to intellectualize what you're doing in numbers, but it's also to get the emotion of the people with you. It's about getting a clear purpose of what you're trying to achieve. Anyone can build a mission statement. It's not difficult. But to actually describe the purpose behind that mission statement, that's what is more difficult. But that's what really gets a tribe behind you, if you can do that.
Yeah, so in fact, that's exactly what I was going to ask. So in your opinion, obviously, the learnings from IBM and the impact you had with the organization clearly were fantastic. And obviously, no doubt you've enjoyed the rewards of your hard work with all of that as well. But what would you say makes a good tribe leader? What characteristics do people look for?
Tough and competent, right? Tough is not about being nasty. It's not about bawling people out all the time. It is about being very direct and very straight, but also listening, okay? But having listened to potentially conflicting opinions, it's about then having the clarity of mind and purpose to make a decision and say, yep, I've heard that. I understand why you say that, but we're going this way. And this is why. That's tough. Competent is about knowing your stuff. And if you are going to take a team with you, many of whom are perhaps set in their ways, or may know more about the subject than you do, if you're going to take them with you, you've got to be prepared to be sufficiently in the detail to gain their respect as someone who knows what they're talking about. Because if you're putting a tough position to them, They've got to believe that you've got enough facts behind you to justify that. And that tough and competent phrase actually comes from a guy called Gene Kranz, who was the Apollo flight director for the lunar landing, Apollo 11. He also was Apollo 13, which was the one that had the, a few miles out from the moon, had the explosion. But the tough and competent came from, I think it was Apollo 7, I think it was, which is the one that caught fire. And Grisham and a few others lost their lives in the capsule on the ground. And Krantz came up with this tough and competent edict. And it's one that I've spent time understanding, and I believe is absolutely key to managing a business in a tough environment, which is today's environment, right? And there's a few politicians could probably learn that dictum as well at the moment.
Yeah, no, quite. And I know, obviously, I think we'd all agree that the armed forces are a really good example of people where you've got tribal leaders. With Neil Lawson, for example, is a case in point, as his ex-special forces. But there's some great values that they were training with the force itself. And by the way, this message, just the point we're discussing today, is extremely important, and it'll become very obvious. If it's not become obvious already, it'll become very obvious when we're about to share around this as well. But what would you say are the key values, if you've been in the forces, that people aspire to be, and what do people look out for, which also makes you that's
if you think about it, the military, the armed forces are probably the ultimate tribe, because if you go back into history, that's sort of where tribes came from. It was defending the village, it was defending the kingdom, it was defending the country, and so on. So that's where tribes came from. But the way I look at a tribe in the military, it is essentially three attributes. You've got the fitness, right? You've got to have your soldiers fit to do the job. If they're all, old and overweight like me, they're not going to be good for anything apart from Dad's army. So fitness is paramount. You've then got to have intellectual, right? You've got to get them at the intellectual level, which to me is about making sure they are mentally ready to react. So whatever the situation that's thrown upon them, they're not sitting there scratching their head saying, oh gosh, I wonder how we handle that. They instinctively know how to react, right? So you've got the fitness aspect, you've got the intellectual aspect. But then you've got the important one that comes back to what I referred to earlier within a tribe, which is the emotional, right? It's that sense of purpose, and let's cut to the quick here. If you are asking people to stand up and put their lives literally on the line to take a bullet, they have emotionally got to be committed to the cause, for God, for Harry and St. George. To quote Shakespeare, the emotional is very important. Now, if you bring it to the business context, fitness is having a product that does the right thing. Intellect is having an understanding of what that product is going to do for you. But in the building of a tribe, it's about getting the emotional buy-in from the market that you want to get access to, and helping them understand the values you're bringing, the purpose you're bringing. And if you look at almost any aspect of marketing, it's about creating emotion in the market, in the potential buyer, right? You've got the old adage that says people buy on emotion and they justify the purchase with logic, right? People buy on emotion, no matter how big the deal, small to large. And if you look at the effort, as I say, that marketing organizations put in to get over the emotion, the values of the brand, you can see that. Pick almost anything. You're going to buy a watch. This watch will help you get up to the top of Everest. You're going to buy a certain kind of shampoo. This shampoo will make you irresistible and charismatic to the people you most want to attract in life. Look at cars, that they're about lifestyle articulation and getting into your emotion. So very much for me, the building of a tribe is about the values, the purpose, and creating that emotional connection into that tribe.
Yeah, lovely. Alex, that's absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much for that. And one of the reasons I was particularly keen to bring this up today is that if you can connect with people en masse in that way, then obviously first of all, you end up by building a really strong organization, which obviously Alex found with IBM. He managed to bring a massive workforce with him along the way, as it were. But also, those people will quite often go to the end of the earth for you as well. And for example, you can have scenarios with companies or organizations as well, where effectively you've created a really strong customer base or fan base, as it were, and inadvertently go and release actually not a very good products. And what happens is, if it was a normal company, people would just drift away and go to the nearest competitor. But if you've got a lot of loyalty there, and let's say you were to make a slight screw up with something, typically what will happen is, if you've handled things the right way, those customers, because they're raving fans, as it were, will actually remain really loyal to you. And where that's relevant is now, for example, when we all have a lot of choice, we all have a vast amount of choice, it is about making people feel good about their relationship. And if you can create that form of momentum as well, and obviously this is why people try and write a lot of content and this other good stuff, because you are trying to present yourself as being an expert and almost a bit of a tribe leader or an expert in your particular space to share value, then these are really good overall attraction strategies. And as we've seen by, some of the great people out there who does great work, Sir Tom, for example, and others, he's got a massive following now. He's getting involved in launching another charity of helping people with mental health, for example. So we can all do amazing things. And also the great thing is you can build a really strong organization. So I'm very blessed, we've got people on our advisory panel who contribute things. Muriel's been with me for a long time, got a very loyal customer database, and everything else that goes with it. So, Alex, thank you very much for that. I'm not quite sure. I think if I return you off the stream, I think it returns you back. If not, can you just log back in again? Is that all right, either via Facebook or the same way you did before? But thank you very much for your feedback and comments, Alex. So thank you very much. Right, Muriel, hi. Right, and let me just go back to over here again. If Alex gets stuck, Muriel, if you could try and help him if you can, please, that'd be lovely. So
okay, there's a nice comment here from Nikki as well.
Yeah.
Well, the values purpose.
Yeah, it's lovely. Thank you, Nikki, for that. That's really appreciated. Okay, so let's just touch on this in a moment. We'll also come to Hilary, if you could very kindly join the green room as well in just a moment. We'll try and deal with your question just a second. So we just talked about this a bit easier, but a bit just now. But fundamentally, if you are very strong in presenting yourself as being an expert in your space, then that's going to help a lot more with things like social media, content writing, putting together live streams or video conferences, podcast creation, email and so on, and blogs. However, it is important to, we referred to Trump a bit earlier on, but clearly Trump is lucky. He's got that vast amount of money. He's got that pulling power, even though what he says a lot of the time is very outrageous. He has got a fan base, whether we like it or not. Okay, so, but we can use all our energy as a force for good with what we're doing. The crucial thing to remember, though, is if we're using social media, someone made this point to me a while back, and I always remembered it. If something is free, then you are the asset and the commodity. Okay, so just read that a couple of times. It's a very serious point, this. And obviously, if you look at Facebook and Instagram particularly, then basically they'll give you access to their network for free. As a member of Facebook, you get used to all that those fantastic things for free. Same with Instagram, same with LinkedIn, even with the free version of LinkedIn, all for free. But then you are the money, so you are the asset. And a good case in point is when LinkedIn came along Microsoft came along, they bought LinkedIn. They actually paid $50 per member. At the time, LinkedIn, I think it was about 400 million people on the platform then. So that gives you some idea of what they put as a value per member. And bear in mind that included the free members as well. The vast majority of people actually use it for free access. So, but that created an organizational value. Again, also on these platforms, you either invest your time or invest your money, or you invest both, okay? And it can be both as well. And crucially, if you try and do all of this yourself, remember something is really only free if you don't value your time. So, and that's a very important point to consider. Now, clearly, if you haven't got much work on at the moment, you need to look at why you've got much work on at the moment. Obviously, there's lots of outside factors like we all know, but also it could be that you're doing perhaps focusing on the wrong things. So just something just bear in mind. And so why in times of massive disruption we build personal and business, we should focus on building our personal and business growth. We obviously discussed about the importance of tribes. It's really important to understand the importance of the social selling blueprint, why have a well-oiled sales machine. And also look at what may break you as well as make you, okay? Look at the breakability factor in your business. And look as well who can be a part of your advisory panel, and also who's prepared to hold you accountable. There's someone who on this call today, which I won't mention by name, who's holding me accountable for all sorts of things. And she's a lovely lady, but very determined and holding me accountable. And apart from Miro, of course, Miro's very good at doing that, but you would expect that, no less. And it's about building resilience in mind. So at this point, Hilary, I don't think you've been able to join us yet, have you? Has Hilary got the new link, Miro? Okay, so
only as per you put it in the chat. So is the link you want from the chat window?
Yeah, that's what
please,
use
Hilary.
the same link, please. That'd be lovely. Whilst we just do that, let's look at some of the other questions and comments on this, Miro.
Right, there's one from Manjot. How do we get the phone number? Right.
Okay. Now, really, this isn't a question so much today, Manjo. It's more for tomorrow, because we're talking about LinkedIn tomorrow and Wednesday. The bottom line is, the bottom line is that LinkedIn won't give you that data. You try to create a backup of your leads, they won't give you that information. Having said that, there are things that potentially you can do. And I won't touch on this particularly now, but for example, if you were to use our BizGrowth Time Machine, which we'll be talking about on Wednesday, you will be able to get a lot of that type of information using that as a tool. But what I would say is, to steal Google's phrase, I'm not sure it's still a current one, it's all about doing no evil. Okay, and I'm not saying you would, by the way, but obviously information can be misused as well. I'm not saying you do that at all. But it's just worth bearing that in mind, and we can talk about some of the strategies on that a bit later.
Okay, Hilary's with us, so let's add Hilary. Hello, yeah. Hilary.
Hello, Hilary. How are you doing? I don't think your microphone can be up. There we go. How are you doing, Hilary?
I'm very good, but I'm getting lots of voices.
Okay, if you turn your loudspeaker down a little bit, mine as well. That should help, because it's probably called acoustic feedback. Have you also got another computer there?
Hello, I've got lots of speaking going on though.
Right.
Oh, that's better. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm good, thanks.
Okay. So Hilary, tell us a little bit more about yourself, the sectors that you're particularly interested in.
Oh, I've now got myself recording.
So can you hear me okay?
Okay.
Right. So, Hilary, can you hear us okay?
I can hear
you. You can? Okay. So tell us a little bit about yourself and the ideal type of target clients you have.
I've got a bit of a time loop because I can hear myself.
Yeah, you may have got some other device connected, or have you got Zoom running or Skype in the background? If so, close Zoom and Skype down.
That's better. Just close Facebook. Is that better? Yeah, can you hear me?
Just mute on Facebook. It's a good point. Okay, can you hear us okay?
I can now. It's just you and me. That's fine. It was a Facebook thing, I think, that was interfering.
Yeah. Actually, of course, I should have mentioned that. Make sure your speakers.
That's fine.
Mira, we need to remember that one tomorrow, if you can, in case someone else comes into that trap. So tell us a bit more about yourself. What was your target market, Hilary?
My target market is always hospitality, luxury hotel, luxury tourism, travel, which of course is dead on its feet right now. So I've done a lot of work on repurposing what we offer in terms of digital training and taking it online. the fact is my market's got no money to spend.
Right.
So I've got to sort of repurpose what I do, and I'm sure what I do is valuable and useful. I do a lot of leadership training, leadership development, organizational development. It just so happens that my market is hotels. I've been in business for 30 years, so I've built up quite a strong client list from there. I do a lot on LinkedIn. I'm very active, have a strong following. I think I've got about 2,000 followers. If I put something on, I can easily get 7,000 or 8,000 views. But that's not producing income.
Okay, right. So has a lot of your income come from referrals, recommendations up to now?
Yeah, I've never had to market.
Yeah, okay. And this is unfortunately an example of when things can go a little bit wrong, because referrals recommendations can be great in terms of the fact that people are typically very heavily pre-qualified when they come into you. And when you get a referral, it can, can lead much more easily to piece work. The trouble is, it's a bit like the 192 bus. You might get 2 or 3 of them coming along at once. Then it could be like the Sahara Desert next, where nothing comes along for another 6 months. Okay, and the trouble is, you get a change in economic circumstances, then that exacerbates things. Obviously, if you get a situation where you can't do a lot of networking, not physical networking anyway, then obviously that makes it worse. Obviously, there is the online equivalent to networking you can do now, which there's an organisation called Business Junction in London, for example, recommend. But also we've started running our own online networking as well every Thursday. It starts at 4 o'clock. So that's something that you're very welcome to join in, and that's available for free. Okay, so it's a chance to meet other people. But your question's more around LinkedIn, is it? Or just tell me a bit more about what was your question in chat.
I suppose it's about extending my reach so that people that don't know me still read me and would still consider me.
Okay.
So my tribe is my tribe, and I've got a very nice tribe and it's in the better times, it's a great tribe, because as you say, that the business pre-qualifies itself, and it's easy.
So what are your primary industry sectors that you're after? You mentioned a couple about I think hospitality a bit earlier on, but are there other sectors which you could take your core proposition and start to go into instead?
Yeah, I think anything that's service related, particularly. Anything that's people related, because leadership, teams, teamwork, team formation, productivity, all of those sorts of things. My background was HR, but I mean, I don't do the HR law or employment law or restructuring side of things anymore. But all the learning development is pretty transferable as a skill set. Okay. But I need to find the market to convince that is the case. Yeah,
but it's markets, but also finding markets where they're in position to spend money as well, isn't it? So the other thing as well is that in some ways you should be a bit oversubscribed at the moment, because obviously there are a lot of companies which are going through massive disruption where they perhaps need your type of service. But although on one hand you're having a lot of success with your followers and your content, on the other hand, you're also a bit like a secret detective, because in other respects, people don't necessarily know that you exist, if I can put it that way.
Yes.
So it is about having a much more strategic approach, okay, in terms of the outreach. Now, I'm going to mainly focus on LinkedIn here, because that obviously is an area we're particularly strong at. You can do things through Facebook as well, but you tend to have to pay to play there.
Yeah.
With LinkedIn, apart from a sales navigator account, you don't need to pay LinkedIn for any pay-per-click advertising at all. They may want you to, but you don't need to. Now, one of the tools which got flagged up a bit earlier on, someone asked about LinkedIn Premium versus Sales Navigator. With Sales Navigator, it's about £60 a month plus that. The targeting you can do on that is very, very powerful. So there's a lot of really good segmentation you can do on that. So it is about really understanding who your ideal type of target customers actually are. And then once you've worked that out, then in effect, putting in place a really good prospect nurturing process. And we recommend at least a 5-message process for that to work well, okay? And it's about sharing lots of value, but you do a very direct, very targeted approach. and that works well. But in order for that to work, you also need to have a very well optimized LinkedIn profile. Not the way the LinkedIn one used to. It needs to be optimized completely differently, so people can get to the nub of your proposition really quickly. Now, I'm going to be going into a lot more detail on this tomorrow, particularly on Wednesday. So it may be that for the depth behind that, it may be better for us to focus on things then, if that's okay with you. But are there some other questions you'd like to ask around that part of it, in order for me to be able to perhaps focus minds a little bit tomorrow?
Thank you. I think it is about optimizing my activity.
Okay.
Making it more focused. I'm active, but I don't know whether I'm particularly strategically active, or it's just a rabbit hole of social media that I did used to have a very clear demarcation between Facebook, because I got on Facebook when I think my daughter went to university, so it was very much a social family thing. So I haven't really used Facebook for business. LinkedIn was always my go-to place, and LinkedIn and Twitter now are probably my two. If I post anything on LinkedIn, I tend to link it to Twitter, because that's where I'm more specific with my followers on Twitter.
Yeah.
LinkedIn's a little bit more scattergun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's about targeting. It's getting access to other sectors so that I'm relevant to other people.
Yeah. Okay, I think the thing is as well, is bear in mind what I've referred to as like push-pull marketing as well earlier on. What you're doing is you'll create a very strong attraction strategy, which draws people to you, which is good as regular, but it's incredibly slow. And there's lots of people out there trying to do the same thing. So it does require a much more targeted approach. And if you can do that, that's standing in good stead. But how many connections you got on LinkedIn at the moment, Hilary?
I think it's probably nearly 2,000.
Okay. Well, if as a rough, you've got access to probably a bit over, believe it or not, a third of the LinkedIn network. Okay. Now the reason I can say that, if you get a calculator out, okay, if you took 2,000, multiply that by 400, and then multiply it by 400 again, okay. And you're going to say, why 400? Well, 400 is the average number of first level connections that people have on LinkedIn. Your reach, I'd have to get a calculator to work it out, but your reach would, total number of people linked to 675 million, you probably got reach to, give or take, 150 to 200 million people. However, LinkedIn is not going to give you all of that. Of course they're not stupid. And of course, everyone will be spamming the network. But what you can do is do some very good targeting to reach those golden nuggets.
Yes.
Okay. I think probably the final part I need to say on this, because we will be covering more tomorrow and Wednesday, is the fact that what you need to be very clear on is those people you're trying to target. Okay, because a lot of people say, well, actually, I can appeal. My service can appeal to many sectors. The trouble is that LinkedIn won't give you that to actually. You have to go after niches and micro niches and start targeting lots of micro niches. And that way you'll get really good results. Again, I'll be discussing a lot of the strategies on that tomorrow and Wednesday.
How do you know which ones to go after?
Now, obviously, a lot of that comes down about knowledge of your market. Again, I will be sharing more value on that tomorrow and Wednesday. So I've got some slides prepared for that for them. So hopefully you'll may find that a bit more helpful.
Thank you. The other thing I would just say is that in case anyone else is on one of these 3 million unforgotten or forgotten, unconsidered, no furlough, no directors, anything.
Yeah.
So it's pretty, I can sit on my hands until Christmas just about, but after 30 years, this is a big crisis for me.
Yeah, sure. I think I'm sorry to hear that. Have you looked at things like the bounce back loan?
I've done it, but I mean, I need more debt. Like I need a hole in the head, really. I mean, I've taken it. I got practically the maximum because of what's been wiped off our diaries. In the year, I think I got 43,000 or something. It's sitting at the bank. I don't want to use it, and when I pay it back, I think it's about £700 a month. So it's going back into the bank as soon as I can get it back.
Yeah, quite. I think what I would say though is you either have got two options. You either do nothing.
I know.
Or it's about being more strategic. And I would say yes, keep a lot of that cash as reserve, but also look strategically at what you could put in place to actually create a whole new pipeline of business. Okay, because unfortunately, whether we like it or not, this is probably going to be with us till at least spring next year. So I think it what I'd hate to see is a scenario where you were in the same position in 6 months' time, but actually worse, because you've actually had to live in the meantime. So it is about being a bit more strategic, trying to go for those markets and things like that. But I'll be sharing lots of value on that tomorrow on Wednesday. We've got a few minutes. But I think Nikki's made a really good point there. I'll just bring that up again very briefly, and then just need to a little bit of a wrap and let people have their dinners and everything. But Nikki's made a good point here. Where some sectors are currently struggling, others are thriving. This is a time to find ways to connect with those who have a budget for our services. Hilary mentioned that the traditional market has no money because of COVID impact. And if the sector has scaled back on their spending, either we find a few who still have funds to invest, being a single rod and line and short net with our marketing, or we have moved from fish on a different pond. And Nikki's quite a wise person, actually. So do reach out to her. Thank you for that, Nikki. That's lovely. Also, I think Alex made a point here. Point of view articles on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. Right. You see with the NHS, for example. That's a really interesting one because that's incredibly relevant again. So it's about trying to light that touch paper, isn't it? Which folks a bit of a and Naz, I'm sorry to hear that as well. But again, we'll hopefully have some really good solutions. Okay, and I think Karen has made a great point here, and we'll just cover that as well. And also, what's Karen said about customer facing, such as retail, banking, supermarkets, etc. Right. Okay.
I think it's having the confidence to move out of my dinosaur comfort zone of being an expert in one field. I spent some of the lockdown time writing a book for hospitality businesses coming back, and that's been great. That's had great take up, but I'm giving it away because it's the best marketing thing I've ever done. But it's actually not. It's generated lots of interest and goodwill, but it hasn't actually generated any cash.
Yeah, but Fred, it is about being more strategic, and it's probably a deeper conversation around all of this. But Hilary, thank you very much. Obviously, on Wednesday, you've got an opportunity to take a question or a form, and we can have a one-to-one conversation, or we can be part of a group discussion. So we can pick up on it again then. But thank you very much for joining us today, Hilary. It is. I've inadvertently disconnected you there. Right, now, Demis just bring this up. There we go. We're back to here. Now, we are pretty well running to time, actually. We might be 2 or 3 minutes over, but we're pretty well running to time. Obviously, if anyone's got any further questions they want to ask, by all means, type it in the chat. I don't mind, happy to start a few minutes extra for anyone who wants to. Obviously, you do have a chance to get involved with other like-minded individuals. I think you can see by the chat today that there's been lots of really goodwill. People have been sharing ideas. Renata's been very active, as usual. Hello, Thomas. Nice to see you here. Who else we got here? David, we spoke to a bit earlier on. Graham and so on. Chris Cook, welcome. Angela, welcome as well as Bev. So thank you for everyone who's joined us today. So we do care passionately about your success. We are here very much to support you individually, helping you to grow your business. If you want to scale your business, then great, we'll help you with that. Our services do hinge around LinkedIn predominantly through what we call social selling blueprint, but always make sure your customers, your products, markets, everything has to be at the center there. Make sure that's well understood, and also look at your supporters, your associates who are keen to support you, and your staff. If you've got staff as well, then this is time like this. We also need to be helping to cover their backs as well. On just a reminder, you don't need to do this today, but you may want to consider doing this. Obviously, when you book the flexi ticket, not ticket for today, that automatically is booked in for tomorrow and Wednesday, so you don't need to rebook. But what you will need to do is confirm your booking about an hour or so before. You get a message before, just like you've done today, indicate the day you've joined us. Now, that's important because the competition that we're running, we need to track which days you've attended, because we do look at the attendance. And if you've looked at things, if you've had to watch a recording because you couldn't attend live, okay, still go in via the same route and choose the day that you missed, because that way we know you've actually seen that content, and that will stand you a good stead in the competition, okay? On Thursday, we've got the networking collaboration session, which is 4 o'clock. That's run as like virtual tables. Again, that's free. And at 2 o'clock, at 5 to 5 or 5 o'clock, we've got the live stream with Barnaby Winter as a guest speaker. And he's going to be sharing lots of insights around all these good things here. And this is very complimentary, where we talk about lead generation, prospect nurturing, sales optimization. The third cog, i.e. sales optimization side, he'll be talking about how to market your business in association with that, look at your brand, so how you can be properly aligned, look at the market context, and look at how things position themselves after the point of purchase, how you can make the post-purchase part of it amazing, so people want to come back and they want to keep on referring you, and they become strong advocates for your business. I'm sure we'd agree that is very relevant. We've covered all these points today about market insights, building tribes, and supporters achieving growth. Tomorrow, we're focusing how to have a balanced portfolio of products and how to get your marketing mix right, including the social selling blueprint. We'll go into a bit more detail about Google, Facebook, and Instagram, and why LinkedIn is so relevant today. And basically, I'm pleased to say, as far as today is concerned, it is a wrap. In fact, we've actually run 1 minute late, for which I apologise. But anyway, thank you very much for joining us. If anyone has got any closing questions, we'd gladly try and assist with those where we can. And do feel free to join us. We do actually start 5 minutes before the official kickoff because of the way the algorithms work on LinkedIn, on YouTube and on Facebook. So do reach out. Muriel, have you got any closing comments you want to add today?
No, just really enjoyed it, and thank you to Hilary and Alex, of course, for joining us on the platform. Lots of good information there, and Hilary will get your questions covered over the next couple of days.
Yeah, good, excellent. And also, for those of you who want to revisit the recordings, what you need to do. In fact, let me just actually, I'm not sure I can do it very easily, but if you go to businessgrowthgear.com, the main website, you can choose the TV video section and choose previous live streams, okay? And in about an hour's time, you will see a link to this recording there, so you can revisit it. And it's just worth actually knowing, okay? Anyway, thank you very much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Thoroughly enjoyed the session, and we'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.